Hey FA Nation, down the stretch we come as the fantasy football season is getting ready to conclude. We've got 1 week left to win it, to take it home. Let's grab those titles. Here is the latest fantasy football stock watch report on fantasyalarm.com. Let's talk about some players who are trending up and others who are trending down when it comes to their fantasy football production potential. Let's get right down to the action. First, a few players trending up. Devin Singletary. Despite the constant fear of Josh Allen vulturing touchdowns away from him, Singletary has been very reliable over the last 4 weeks. He's run in 4 touchdowns combined in his last 3 weeks, and he's received 22 plus carries in 2 of his last 3 outings. He's even caught 5 or more passes in 2 of his last 4 games. Up next for Buffalo is another date with the Jets, and they are awful against the run. They've allowed a league-high 22 rushing scores to running backs this year. Last time out against them, Singletary received just 7 carries, but he still rushed for 6.1 yards per carry and hit the end zone last time out. He also hasn't turned the ball over all season long. Up next on the risers list, Dalton Schultz. Schultz owns a 16.3% team target share in Dallas, which is second highest on the team, and he's received 21% or more of the targets in each of his last 3 games. Between Dak Prescott playing better and Michael Gallup being out for the year after tearing his ACL, it sets Schultz up nicely in what should be a smash spot of a matchup for him against the Eagles, who are at the bottom of the league when it comes to defense versus tight ends. They've surrendered 102 receptions to opposing tight ends, and back in week 3, Schultz caught 2 touchdowns and logged 80 receiving yards against them. Schultz has hit the end zone in 2 of his last 3 weeks, and he's caught 6 touchdown passes for the season. Final riser, Zach Ertz. We were all wondering who would benefit most once DeAndre Hopkins went down, and Ertz has not only played the most snaps over the last 2 weeks of any Cardinals running back or pass catcher, but he's received 9 or more targets in 3 straight games. He hasn't been scoring, but he's caught no fewer than 5 passes in each of his last 4 weeks. He is the prioritized receiving weapon in Arizona, and his next opponent, Seattle, has surrendered 9 touchdown receptions to tight ends, which is 4th most in the league. Ertz had his best game of the season in PPR leagues the last time he faced the Seahawks, catching 8 passes for 88 yards with 2 touchdowns. Now for some players trending down. Let's start with Saquon Barkley. Did Barkley have his lone 100-plus yard rushing game of the season last week against the Bears? He sure did. It sure didn't make a big of a difference, though, did it? As Barkley hasn't rushed in a score since week 4, and he hasn't been utilized as much in the Giants' passing game over the last couple of weeks. He's received 1 target in both of his last 2 games. The Giants aren't scoring, as they've scored 10 points or fewer in their last 3 contests. Barkley has also played less than 56% of the Giants' offensive snaps in 4 straight outings. He got outsnapped by Devontae Booker in Week 16, and then Barkley outsnapped him just 30-27 in Week 17. It's a pretty even split, and with the Giants having nothing to play for, it wouldn't be surprising to see the G-men sit Barkley for the final game of the year. Up next falling is Melvin Gordon. While Gordon has been a bit banged up for the last few weeks, he's still been on the field, and investors have seen his production drop off for the most part over his last few matchups. We saw the Broncos get worked by the Chargers, and the Chiefs, who only allowed the Broncos to score 9 points on them the last time they squared off, are next up, and since that Broncos game, the Chiefs have scored no fewer than 31 points in each of their matchups. Denver, on the other hand, has failed to score more than 13 points in each of their last 3 games, which indicates that game script is once again going to work very much against both Gordon and Javonte Williams. Gordon hasn't been catching many passes out of the backfield, and he's scored touchdowns in just 1 of his last 5 matchups. Final faller, Tua Tagovailoa. We've seen Tagovailoa struggle over the last 3 weeks. He's completed 59.3% of his passes or less in 2 of his last 3 games, and in Week 1 against the Patriots, he also completed only 59.3% of his passes. The Patriots are one of the strongest teams in the league at limiting quarterbacks, and they've picked off quarterbacks 23 times this year, which is second most in the NFL. Tagovailoa has not only thrown interceptions in his last 3 games, but he's also thrown more interceptions than touchdown passes in his last 3 weeks. He's thrown for fewer than 200 yards in 2 of his last 3 games, just barely eclipsing 200 in Week 17. And that is our Fantasy Football Stock Watch Report, FA Nation. Keep it locked in. The injuries are always running rampant, as is COVID. Make sure you're checking our COVID tracker. Make sure you're not taking the foot off the gas pedal. One more week. That's what it's all about. Let's take it home and let's win.